Stop. Don't scroll. If you have felt a strange internal shift over the last 48 hours, an undeniable sensation that a cycle is closing and a heavy door is unlocking, this is not a coincidence. You have been in a long period of silence, tired, and standing dangerously close to giving up. But something you did today, a quiet decision in your spirit, opened an unprecedented exception in heaven. Listen carefully. Your soul is in a state of permanent alert, and your body is paying the price. You lay down, but your mind refuses to rest, trapped in the shallow, vigilant sleep of someone expecting the next blow. You wake up at 3 in the morning with a heavy, nameless tightness in your chest, keeping the exhausting vigil of a watchman waiting for a confirmation that never seems to break through the dark. This exhaustion paralyzes you right at the threshold of the new phase. Simple decisions that used to be easy now make you freeze, and the choices you make in urgency already carry the bitter taste of a mistake. You are watching yourself repeat the exact same patterns you have already diagnosed, playing out in different contexts, unable to break the cycle right when you need clarity the most. But the heaviest toll happens when you cross the threshold of your home. Your spouse has slowly learned not to ask how your day was. Your child has stopped calling for you for the small things, sensing the invisible wall you carry. You bring a heavy silence through the front door, and without meaning to, you end up unloading the weight of your unexplainable battles right at the dinner table. I'm going to show you exactly where you have truly been in these last few months, in a way that finally makes the crushing silence make sense. You will recognize yourself in the words I'm about to speak, not in the general sense, but in the specific. The specific night staring at the ceiling, the specific decision that paralyzed you, the specific conversation that ended in heavy silence. I will give you 3 ancient Hebrew words that perfectly decode the exact moment you are living in, and this happens inside this very video. At the end, I will declare 3 new names over your life. This is not a generic blessing to make you feel better. This is a specific commission, sealing your identity so you can finally assume the seat that has been empty waiting for you. I do not promise that this changes your life by tomorrow morning, but I do promise that if you stay until the end, you will leave here knowing a truth you didn't know, holding something specific in your hands, and with a spiritual reality declared over you that remains. But hear me clearly. If you choose to leave in the middle of this message, you walk away without the seal. Think of a seed buried deep in the dead of winter. The ground is hard, it is entirely dark, and there is absolutely no external evidence of life breaking through the soil. It feels like isolation and abandonment. But that seed wasn't buried by accident. It was placed there with surgical intention by hands that knew exactly what heavy mantle it was destined to carry when the season finally shifted. You need to understand that you have not been fighting poorly. You have simply been fighting without the proper map, stepping into a completely new territory without the instrument that was promised to you, an instrument you still don't even know exists. You cannot govern a new spiritual landscape using the exhausted survival tools that barely got you through your longest days in the desert. Before we take the next step, declare in the comments right now, I am here. I want you to make that decree of positioning. And regarding this deep exhaustion in your bones, the paralysis in your decisions, and that heavy silence you bring to your family, there is something Solomon left recorded. He left a 2-minute key that fits perfectly into your ordinary day and which I will show you later. Keep this in the back of your mind. If you must leave before the end of this video, this instrument is already waiting for you in the first pinned comment right below. But I ask you to stay until the end, because without the context that comes next, the key will not work with the same power in your hands. But tell me, what happens to a seed that no one planted, no one waters, and yet still insists on growing? You arrived here because something you did today opened an exception in heaven. The word was given, the decree was issued. But between receiving the heavy mantle and actually crossing the threshold to assume your seat, there is an interval the enemy knows better than you do. It is in this exact interval that most chosen ones lose what was granted, not because the decree was revoked, but because they arrived home on Monday morning still smelling like the smoke of the forge, without the instrument to sustain the new territory. Solomon was the wisest man who ever lived, and this is not a history book title. It is a biblical record signed by God himself. When he had the chance to ask for anything, he didn't ask for wealth, long life, or the heads of his enemies. He asked for wisdom. God was so moved he gave him wisdom and everything else with it. He judged the dispute of the two mothers when no one else knew how. He wrote 3,000 proverbs. He governed Israel at the historical peak that nation ever saw before or since. The Queen of Sheba traveled months on a camel just to test this wisdom, returning to say not even half had been told. And Jesus himself cited Solomon by name. He didn't take this wisdom to the grave. He left it recorded with a surgical precision that crossed 3,000 years without losing its edge. He left recorded how to stop carrying the heavy chains of past mistakes and survival instincts into your new territory. He left recorded how to cross the threshold of your home without bringing the ashes and smoke of the forge to your family's dinner table, so your house finally feels the difference and they don't need you resolved, they just need you present. And he left recorded how to walk with the straight spine of a chosen one, assuming his seat. Not like a survivor begging for crumbs in a phase that already belongs to you, so you stop deciding in the heat of pain, stop asking advice from those who sink you, and stop believing cheap miracles. Before I name the instrument, move your thumb to the first pinned comment right below. Don't click yet. Just let your gaze reach it and recognize that it's there. Do that now. I gathered this into a guide called The Code of Solomon's Wisdom. It is a main written guide in PDF that you read in one 40-minute sitting, plus the audio of The Ritual of the Righteous Sleep in MP3 to listen to before bed, and the written guide of the 7 morning decrees in PDF to open in the first hour of the day. It is in the first pinned comment right below. The union of the wisdom of Proverbs with the principles of peaceful restoration, which take a person out of the survival state and bring them into a state of clarity and decision. Solomon wrote it. I organized it for the ordinary day you are living right now, in this week that begins tomorrow. Along with the main guide come 2 instruments that I placed there because without them, the guide would have a hole. The first is the ritual of the righteous sleep. 10 minutes before sleeping, guided by what David wrote in Psalm 4:8. I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. It is not a modern relaxation technique. It is the act of handing over to the keeping of the one who does not sleep the heavy mantle you carried all day, so that your soul stops standing guard over the forge, defending what is already in the hands of someone who doesn't need you awake to protect what is yours. The second is the awakening of clarity, the 7 morning decrees. 5 minutes upon waking, before your phone, before your coffee, before the first message the world tries to write into you. 7 decrees pronounced in your own voice, taken from the wisdom of Proverbs, that position the day before the day positions you. Not positive affirmation. It is biblical decree in your own voice. The posture of an heir before the calendar, the bills and the routine speak for you. To start the day like someone who was called, not like someone who was crushed before 8 in the morning. And the value, oh, the value. Less than a Starbucks coffee in the afternoon, less than a simple Sunday lunch with your family, less than a tank of gas to drive to church on Sunday. I set it at this value on purpose, not because it is worth little. It is worth what Solomon left recorded for 3,000 years. I set it at this value so that the only obstacle between you and the instrument would be your decision to reach out your hand. Not price, not schedule, not travel. Just your hand in the direction of the link. And it comes with a guarantee of 7 days. If you open it, use it for a week, and it doesn't serve you. You send an email and receive your money back entirely. And here is the part nobody does. You keep the 2 bonus instruments. The ritual of the righteous sleep stays with you. The awakening of clarity, the 7 morning decrees stays with you, even after the refund. This is not a generous concession. It is the recognition that the risk of testing cannot be yours. The risk is ours. The only risk left for you is the risk of not testing it. And the risk of not testing it is the risk of leaving here with the decree open in heaven and losing it on Monday morning for lack of an instrument. Several people here on this channel in recent weeks have already received this instrument. Fathers, grandparents, people who carry their household on their backs. I've read messages from a husband who sat down at the dinner table and his wife noticed the difference without needing to ask. From a grandmother who managed to pray with her grandchild without the weight of the day crossing the prayer. From those who slept through the night for the first time in months. It's not magic. It's the right instrument in the right hand. And while they sleep tonight with their soul handed over, your calendar keeps running. The next night you will lay your head on the pillow with your soul still on alert is today. Maybe 3 hours from now. The next morning you will wake up thinking about the battles, starting the day at a disadvantage, is tomorrow. Every night without the ritual of the righteous sleep is a night your body will pay for. Every morning without the awakening of clarity. The 7. Morning decrees is a morning the world rewrites first. Every day without the code of Solomon's wisdom is a day the house feels, and you don't even realize you feel it. The cost of postponing is not zero, but do not leave now. The ceiling is not over yet. What I need to show you next is greater than any instrument Solomon left recorded. It is the Hebrew name of what is happening to you at this exact moment. The name of the exception that was opened in heaven because of what you did today. And when you hear this name, you will understand why everything up to this point was preparation for one single word. Stay. The transition from the furnace to the throne room is not marked by angels blowing trumpets in your living room. It is marked by a crushing, silent weight that the world mistakes for depression, but heaven recognizes as the incubation of a heavy mantle. I'm going to list 5 signs that prove you are not losing your mind, but rather carrying a calling in a violent period of transition. You are standing right at the threshold of the new territory, and the enemy is trying to convince you that this exhaustion is proof of your failure. Listen to these 5 marks. The first sign is the sudden suffocation of your prayers. Your prayer has changed its tone. You used to speak and feel the immediate shift in the atmosphere, but lately it feels like your words do not even reach the ceiling. You kneel down, and instead of a burning fire, you find a dry, exhausting silence. It looks like heaven has turned its back on you, but this is the inversion. God is not ignoring you. He silenced the old frequency because the old skin can no longer communicate with the new territory. You are being forced to learn the language of the air. The second sign is the paralysis of your decisions under an unnameable weight. In the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, you feel a crushing pressure on your chest that has no logical trigger. Choices that used to take you seconds now leave you completely locked. You are watching yourself repeat the exact same survival patterns you have already diagnosed, playing out with different people in different contexts, as if you are trapped in a loop. It looks like cowardice, but it is actually the heavy mantle of the new phase demanding a new architecture. You cannot govern the new territory using the panicked instincts of the desert. The third sign is the heavy silence at the threshold of your own home. You sit on the couch with your family, but your mind is thousands of miles away, fighting a solitary war. Your spouse has slowly learned not to ask what is wrong, and your child no longer calls for you for the small things. You are entirely surrounded by the weight of the forge, and you do not know how to unload it without dumping the ashes on your dining table. It looks like emotional rejection, but it is the desperate isolation of someone carrying a royal seal without knowing how to wear it at home. The fourth sign is the invisible drain of your energy and resources. Unexplainable breaches are opening up in your ordinary days. Money seems to slip through invisible cracks. Unexpected mechanical failures happen, and your physical body wakes up already exhausted, drained by a shallow, vigilant sleep. You're constantly putting out small fires that never seem to end. It looks like a curse of perpetual delay, but it is the enemy's final desperate tactic to keep you exhausted at the finish line. He wants you so focused on the leaking buckets that you drop the crown right at the threshold. The fifth sign is the terrifying silence when you beg for a specific confirmation. You have cried out, asking for just one clear sign, one simple direction to validate the next step, and the only answer you receive is an absolute, deafening silence. It looks like abandonment in your most critical hour, but it is the ultimate test of the royal forge. Heaven is silent because the decree has already been issued. God does not repeat what he has already established. The silence is not a void. It is the king stepping back to see if you will finally assume the seat on your own. If you recognize yourself in at least 3 of these 5 signs, If this perfectly describes the invisible war you have been fighting, I need you to go to the comments right now and write this exact sentence. I carry what no one else carries. Make this declaration. Do not just think it. Type it out as a physical act of taking ownership of the heavy mantle that was placed upon your shoulders. You need to understand the mechanics of the spiritual realm. Think of a high-pressure chamber. When extreme pressure and intense heat are applied to ordinary coal, the coal does not scream that it is being punished. It is simply undergoing the violent process of becoming a diamond. Every sign you just heard, every ounce of pressure applied to your life over the last few years, was not a punishment. What felt like a crushing defeat was actually the royal refinery. You were not being buried, you were being forged into something unbreakable for the new phase. Before I give you the Hebrew name of what you carry, I need to remind you of one crucial thing. The instrument that Solomon left recorded, the 2-minute key I mentioned at the beginning, does not replace the name you are about to receive. It helps you sustain that name in the ordinary day after the name is received. Because a decree without a daily defense evaporates. First comes the name, then comes the instrument. Stay with me. There is a word in ancient Hebrew that defines exactly what you carry and explains the exact reason why the forge had to be so hot. When I say this word, the confusion in your mind will shatter, and you will never look at this period of isolation the same way again. I am going to reveal it right now. Stay, close your eyes, breathe deeply, place your hand on your chest. You have spent the last few years believing that the crushing weight on your shoulders was the undeniable proof of your failure. You watched the heavy silence fall upon your family's dinner table and assumed you were losing the spiritual war. But heaven does not operate in the logic of human despair. What you have been experiencing is not the decay of an old life, but the violent extraction of a new identity. There is a word in ancient Hebrew that names exactly what is happening to you at this very moment. It is the code that unlocks the heavy door you have been standing in front of. The word is bakir. Listen to the sound of it, bakir. When scholars and historians look at this ancient word, many translate it simply as the chosen one. But that is a shallow shell. That is the definition for those who only read the history books and never stepped inside the blazing heat of the forge. To translate bakir merely as a random selection is to entirely ignore the blood, the isolation, and the agonizing silence that it demands. It reduces a brutal, holy calling to a mere stroke of luck, when heaven knows exactly what it cost you to get to this threshold. The true meaning of bakir is the ore that has been violently pulled from the dark and thrust into the royal furnace. It is the heavy mantle placed upon the one whose impurities and old survival instincts were systematically melted away in the dark. You are the bakir. You were not being punished, and you were not abandoned in the wilderness. The last few years were never a punishment. They were the furnace. The fire did not come to destroy you. The fire came with surgical intention to burn away the old skin, to consume everything that was fragile, and to reveal the unbreakable iron underneath. It came to give you the royal seal. Now that you have survived the fire, now that you have been tested and approved to cross the threshold, the dynamic changes completely. You cannot walk into this new territory carrying the ashes and the smoke of the furnace. You cannot govern the new phase using the desperate, panicked tools of the desert. Because you have been approved, you now need the instrument. You need the code of Solomon's wisdom to handle this new authority without burning your own hands. You need the blueprint to walk with the straight spine of a chosen one, assuming his seat, leaving the old chains permanently on the floor. This is not a motivational metaphor. This is the ancient spiritual protocol of the kingdom. The prophet Isaiah recorded this exact process thousands of years ago, directly from the mouth of God. In Isaiah 48:10, the decree is written with absolute clarity for the one who thought they were forgotten. Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. Hear the weight of that decree. You were not chosen in a comfortable palace. You were chosen in the furnace. The affliction was the very proof of your calling. The silence was the sound of the blacksmith evaluating the blade. This period of your life has a name before it has an end. The isolation and the heavy weight now have a definition. Think back to that seed buried deep in the dead of winter, isolated in the freezing dark. That seed was not dead. It was incubating under the heavy pressure of the soil. And now, the word Bakir is the exact code that opens the sealed file of your true identity. The winter is over. The heavy door is unlocking. The season has shifted and the soil is finally breaking open to reveal the royal lineage you were always destined to carry. Now that you know the name of what you carry, I need to show you that someone carried this before you. Someone who was also pulled from the dark, thrust into a new territory overnight, and forced to govern a completely foreign land. And what happened to that person and how they managed the heavy mantle without destroying their family will change everything. I promise to come back to this. It is now. You have stood in the dark for so long that you began to believe the darkness was your final destination. You felt the cold draft of the dungeon, the heavy chains of betrayal from those who should have protected you, and the absolute silence of heaven while your youth seemed to waste away. You watched others advance, others who didn't carry half the integrity you carried, while you remained stuck in the waiting room of the promise. But what you called a graveyard of forgotten dreams, heaven called the royal incubator. You were not buried, you were hidden for your own protection until the season shifted. There is a man who knew the exact suffocating weight of this silent forge. Joseph was the original Bakir, the chosen one who had the heavy mantle of a dream placed upon his shoulders long before he had the emotional architecture to sustain it. He was thrown into a pit by his own blood, sold into a foreign land, and locked in a dark prison for a crime he never committed. For years, the silence was absolute. It looked like the ultimate defeat of a promised destiny. The enemy whispered in the dark that his calling was a delusion, just an arrogant fantasy of a naive boy. But when the threshold was finally crossed, when he was pulled from the dungeon to the palace in a single 24-hour cycle, Joseph did not rely merely on an abstract faith to govern. He needed practical, applied wisdom to sustain the new territory. He didn't just interpret Pharaoh's dream, he built the granaries. He created the administrative blueprint to protect a nation from famine. He managed the crisis with a surgical precision that kept him from acting out of the trauma of the pit. He used an instrument of wisdom to govern the abundance, ensuring his family wouldn't starve when they finally came begging for bread. In that exact moment, the agonizing years in the dark finally made sense. The prison was never a punishment. It was the intense furnace that melted away the arrogant boy and shaped the unbreakable ruler. The invisible preparation abruptly revealed itself as an undeniable, visible calling. Everything he learned in the shadows was the exact curriculum required to hold the royal seal in the light without letting the power burn his hands. The heavy mantle settled perfectly on his shoulders because the old skin had been completely shed in the fire of the affliction. He was ready to assume the seat. Before I declare the 3 names that will seal this same transition over your life, I need you to perform a physical act of intercession. Press the like button on this video right now. Every like registered here is a beacon for another person who is still trapped in the dark of their own forge, believing they have been forgotten. You are not doing this for my sake. You are doing it to pull them across the threshold. You are lighting the torch so another chosen one can find the door. Now position yourself to receive. Stand tall, drop the heavy chains of the past from your hands, and listen to the decree of heaven. The first name I declare over you is the keeper of the new territory. You are no longer a survivor begging for crumbs at the edges of a phase that already belongs to you. You are not a temporary visitor or a fraud waiting to be discovered. Heaven has granted you the legal and spiritual deed to the ground you are stepping on today. You are the definitive custodian of this new season. Carrying the name of the keeper of the new territory means the anxiety of displacement must die right now. It means you stop waiting for the other shoe to drop, stop expecting the sudden sabotage, and stop apologizing for the space you occupy. You have the authority to plant roots, to build the granaries, and to govern the abundance without the crippling guilt of the imposter syndrome. Your presence alone now establishes order where there used to be chaos, bringing an unshakable grounding to your mind and your home. The second name I declare over your life is the bearer of the royal seal. This is the mark of unapologetic authority. The years in the furnace burned away your need to please the crowd and removed the fragile desire to fit in with those who compromise. God is placing his heavy signet ring upon your hand. What you approve in this new phase will be approved in the heavens. What you reject at your door will be permanently barred from entering. Your voice is no longer an echo. It is a decree. Operating as the bearer of the royal seal means your decisions will carry a supernatural weight that the world cannot ignore. When you speak, the atmosphere will shift, and those who used to diminish you will have to pause and listen. This name instills an unbreakable confidence within you, shattering the paralysis that used to freeze your choices. You will no longer shrink yourself to make others comfortable with your calling. You will carry the weight of the crown with the straight spine of someone who knows exactly who signed their commission. The third name I declare over you is the vanguard of the lineage. You are not just crossing this threshold for your own relief. You are the tip of the spear. You were chosen to step into the violent heat of the forge so that the generational curses of your bloodline would finally break against your chest. You are absorbing the final blows of the old cycle, so that your children and your children's children will walk on completely level ground. The war ends with you. Being the vanguard of the lineage awakens a fierce protective instinct that rewrites your legacy. It means that the heavy silence you used to bring to your family's dinner table is forever broken. Your home will no longer inherit the ashes of your battles. They will inherit the spoils of your victory. Every decision you make from this day forward echoes into the next century. You are clearing the path, pulling your entire house out of the survival state and planting them firmly in the promised territory of the heirs. Joseph operated on this exact same frequency. The palace, the royal seal, and the granaries were always transmitting the signal, but he had to be tuned to the precise frequency of the baker to receive it. These three names I just declared are not just words. They are the exact tuning of your internal receiver. They align your spirit to capture the transmission of the new territory. The static noise of the desert is gone. You are now perfectly synchronized with the rhythm and the pacing of heaven's command center. But there is something the enemy desperately does not want you to know about these three names, because the moment you discover this single detail, he instantly loses the primary weapon he has been using against you all these years. Now that the sealed file of your identity is open, the dynamic of the war shifts completely. The adversary knows that a chosen one holding the name of Ba-Kir is no longer a confused target wandering in the desert. He cannot send you back to the furnace because the fire has already done its work. So he changes his strategy. He will try to attack you right at the threshold of the new territory, precisely when you are about to assume your seat. He operates through three specific tactics of erosion, and for each one you must wield the exact spiritual weapon. The first attack is the erosion of comparison. The enemy will whisper in your ear that your time is moving much slower than everyone else's. He will point to people who have half your integrity and show how they are advancing while you remain stuck. He wants to convince you that you have been left behind in God's calendar. This tactic is designed to make you panic and repeat the exact survival mistakes of your past, forcing you to make hasty decisions based on the heavy chains of anxiety rather than the solid ground of your new phase. Your defense is the decree of singularity. You must speak out loud what God declared over you, not what your anxious flesh feels in the moment. You do not govern a new territory by looking at someone else's map. You declare, "My trajectory is unique. I do not compare my brutal winter with someone else's superficial spring." When you assume the straight spine of the Bakir, you realize your prolonged time in the dark was not a delay, but the necessary incubation for a heavy mantle that others could never carry. The second attack is the erosion of perception. The adversary will try to convince you that heaven's silence is absolute rejection. Because he cannot touch your crown, he will attack the threshold of your home. He will fill your house with static noise and constant small fires, making sure you arrive at the dinner table carrying the smoke of the forge. He wants to drown out the still, small voice of God with daily chaos, hoping you will unload your unresolved battles onto your family and break the sanctuary of your home. Your defense is the memory of the altar. You must actively recall the exact moment in your past when God was unequivocally real and present in your life. That memory is not nostalgia. It is legal proof presented in the court of heaven. Memory always defeats false perception. When the static noise tries to deafen you, anchor your soul to that undeniable altar. Refuse to let temporary chaos rewrite the permanent decree. By remembering the fire that called you, you cross the threshold of your house, bringing the peace of a king, not the panic of a victim. The third attack is the erosion of persistence. The enemy knows he only needs you to give up 24 hours before the heavy door finally unlocks. He will concentrate the agonizing weight of the last 7 years and drop it entirely on your final mile. He wants you to feel so physically and emotionally exhausted that you drop the royal seal right at the finish line. He makes your decisions feel impossibly heavy, hoping you will surrender your rightful seat simply because you are too tired to take the last remaining step. Your defense is last-second resistance. This is the posture of standing firm when every fiber of your body is screaming at you to fall. You do not need to sprint. You do not need to fight beautifully, and you do not need to feel brave. You simply refuse to step away from the threshold. You hold your ground. The victory of the Bakir in this final hour is not a spectacular display of strength. It is the quiet, unbreakable stubbornness of a chosen one who refuses to hand over the keys to their territory. Before we move to the final seal, you need to establish a physical marker of your presence in this new frequency. Subscribe to this channel right now. Do not do this as a casual social media gesture. Do it as a deliberate spiritual positioning of your receiver for the days to come. Every time a new transmission is released here, your spirit will be alerted that another piece of the strategic map has been unlocked. Subscribing is the act of keeping your antenna raised and tuned to the exact wavelength of the new territory. Now that you know exactly what invisible forces you are dealing with, and you hold the strategic weapons you can fight them with, the theory must become reality. There is a specific prayer that needs to be made to seal this transition once and for all. Not a prayer made by me on your behalf. A prayer made by you, taking total ownership of the heavy mantle that was placed upon your shoulders. I am going to lead you through it, word by word, right now. Do not move from where you are. Close your eyes now. Place both hands over your chest. Breathe deeply before we continue. You are bringing before the altar the absolute exhaustion of a physical body that has forgotten how to properly rest, carrying a nervous system that remains on permanent guard even in the dark. You are laying down the silent paralysis of your daily decisions, the terrifying fear of taking the next step and repeating the same survival mistakes that have already cost you so much time and peace. And above all, you are presenting the heavy silence you have dragged across the threshold of your own home, the unspoken tension that sits right at your family's dinner table, separating you from the people you love simply because you do not know how to unload the burning ashes of the forge. But right here, standing at the very edge of the new territory, you refuse to surrender your rightful seat. You declare that you will no longer operate as a confused survivor wandering the desert, but as the Bakir who has survived the intense heat of the fire. You actively receive the heavy mantle of the keeper of the new territory. You take full ownership as the bearer of the royal seal, and you step firmly into the protective position of the vanguard of the lineage. You are anchoring your spirit to the undeniable reality that the season has violently shifted, and you are entirely ready to hold the weight of the crown without letting it burn your hands. I saw you on the nights when you stared at the bedroom ceiling at 3 in the morning, when the suffocating tightness in your chest arrived long before your first conscious thought. I saw you tossing in the dark, your body exhausted, but your mind standing a desperate shallow watch, waiting for a confirmation that the sun would actually rise. I saw the physical toll of carrying a heavy mantle that you did not yet know how to wear. The exact moment you woke up to the sound of the alarm already drained by a battle you fought entirely in the silent hours of the night. I saw you. I saw you in the decisions you made in sheer despair because clarity did not arrive in time, staring at your phone screen while the panicked instincts of the desert hijacked your choices. I saw you wake up the next morning with the crushing weight of a mistake you clearly diagnosed, but simply did not know how to avoid, repeating the same old survival patterns right at the threshold of the promised land. I saw the invisible paralysis, freezing your feet on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, the silent terror of sabotaging your own future, just when the heavy door was finally beginning to unlock. I saw you crossing the threshold of your front door, still carrying the burning smoke of the forge, unloading the brutal weight the world placed upon your shoulders directly onto your own dining table. I saw you sitting on the living room couch, physically present but 1,000 miles away, and I saw your family slowly learn not to ask what was wrong. I saw the heavy silence fall between you and those you love the most, the agonizing isolation of holding a royal seal without knowing how to wear it at home. I saw you, and I saw the pain of that in you. But the fire you endured was not my rejection. It was the royal refinery burning away the fragile skin of your past. I did not hide you in the dark to bury you. I incubated you in the absolute silence to forge the unbreakable iron required for the throne room. The agonizing wait is over. I am stripping you of the filthy, exhausted garments of the wilderness and placing upon your shoulders the heavy, definitive mantle of the Bar Khir. You are no longer fighting for a place in the kingdom. You are approved, you are chosen, and I am officially handing you the deed to govern the new territory. You are committed, you are commissioned, you are sent. Don't say amen yet, stay here. Remember the seed buried deep in the absolute dark of winter, isolated under the crushing pressure of the frozen soil. It felt abandoned, entirely forgotten by the hands that planted it, suffocating under a weight that seemed designed to destroy it. But the season has finally shifted. The heavy soil has broken open. What you believed was a dark graveyard was actually the royal incubator, and the life that is breaking through the surface right now carries a lineage that the winter could never kill. The seed has survived the dark, and the harvest of the Bar Khir has officially begun. Now you may say, Amen. Don't open your eyes yet. Keep your hands on your chest. The seal is fresh, and it's exactly now that the adversary will try his first attack. What was sealed here will be tested on the first Monday. When the alarm rings, when routine returns, when the cycle rereads today as a passing emotion, whoever was commissioned without an instrument walks into the open field without what Solomon left. The exception was opened. Now it must survive the ordinary day. The Code of Solomon's Wisdom is in the first pinned comment right below, not as a substitute for what you received in this message, as a companion to defend what was sealed, because a decree without an instrument rots on the first Monday morning, and the adversary counts on Monday. Less than a Starbucks coffee in the afternoon, less than a Saturday snack, with a guarantee of 7 days and the 2 bonus instruments that stay with you even if it doesn't serve you. The risk is ours, the hand is yours. Click now while the decree is still alive, not tomorrow, not after your shower, because whoever leaves it for later leaves it for never, and the adversary counts on later. That voice whispering right now, you'll see later, decide tomorrow, now is not the time. That voice is not yours. That voice is the voice of the one who lost today in the court of heaven and is trying to recover ground on your Monday morning. He already counted on later before. Click before the adversary speaks louder than the decree that has just been sealed over your head. And now the last word. There is someone in your circle carrying the exact same heavy mantle. Someone arriving home tonight unloading the smoke of the forge. Someone laying their head down, terrified to cross the threshold. This person won't stop scrolling alone. They need you to send this. This is not sharing, this is interceding. Close your eyes. Breathe 3 times, remain in silence until the video ends. What was done needs to land, stay.